This week's video is all about taking an ordinary photo and turning it into something with real energy and mood. Welcome. Out in nature, everything's alive and constantly moving. The light, the shadows, the atmosphere. It's beautiful, but it can also be a lot to take in. So when you sit down with a photo or a panorama like this, it can be hard to decide what really matters and where to start. Last week we talked about simplifying and designing from our reference material. This week I want to take the same idea but a little further, using this ordinary photo but exploring what color alone can do to transform it into something a bit more alive and maybe unexpected. Nature is full of wonder. Everything feels like it's glowing at full intensity. The greens of the meadow, the blues of the sky, it's all vibrant and alive. But as artists, we have to be selective. Decide what carries the emotional weight and what deserves the spotlight. Claude Monet often emphasized laying down the dominant color and light relationships first, so at the beginning stages of your painting. You need to set that keynote and let everything else build around it. Here I'm laying in those blues of the background. That atmosphere will frame everything that follows, especially the lights and darks in those clouds. Once that main relationship is in place, the rest of the painting can find its balance. I know that I'm going to exaggerate some of these colors. I think obviously this is the central focus, and some of the violets and blues that we have in the shade part of this cloud, I'm going to definitely exaggerate because everything is reading quite cool. Okay, so everything is reading thus far on the cooler end. This is the distant mountain. I'm not sure how much work I'm going to do on that. Probably not as much as up here, but I want to introduce some warmth to this cloud on this side. That is essentially a theme for this week. We're deviating from what we see directly from our reference and introducing interest, essentially. These clouds certainly have a presence, and the way that I'm applying these colors will certainly read as that. But in reality, it's just water vapor, and it's transient. It's, in this shape and the form that it's taken here in my photo, it only lasted for a few minutes. So when you're working from an average photo, like the one I'm showing you there, the key is to look past what it literally shows and start assigning color relationships to the larger masses. If something reads as a simple blue or white, there's often subtle shifts happening, whether temperature, complementary color, reflected light, and etc. I like to begin with logic of warm light and cool shadow, everyone's heard of that, and then let the painting drift from that, seeing where usually intuition takes me. In the end, I think art really comes down to seeing and comparing, noticing how one color lives next to another, and how those relationships create harmony and depth. What is it about certain paintings that speak to us? Is it color? Is it balance? Is it design? I try to build the same calm by layering color. Let me show you. So you apply color, you remove it, you destroy it, you see what comes of it. See, for example, this part here, I've kind of muddied up too much. I want that to be a little bit sharper. I may introduce that same color again, although I've lost it here. But as an example, I might come in again, introduce that color and make that edge here sharper. Let's get that a little warmer. One drawback of using these tools is that it's difficult to mix. If you want a flat color, you essentially end up having just various different color values, which a lot of times is not a problem, but for some it may be. When I start layering color, I'm always thinking in terms of what I'm seeing, of course, but also temperature. So warm, light, and cool shadow. We kind of talked about that already. That idea drives kind of everything. So fundamentally what I'm looking at, and also the way that I'm arranging my palette. Even though you may not be able to see it here, it's always arranged around those principles. Warm and cool versions of every major color family. So as an example, I'll have a warm red like Cad Red or Cad Scarlet, and maybe a cool version of that would be an alizarin. And maybe a warm yellow, which is, I guess by everyone's standards, just always yellow is warm. I may have a warm yellow like a yellow ochre, and a cooler yellow like a lemon yellow. And I guess the same thing goes for blues and greens. Once that structure is in place, I can respond more intuitively to what's happening in the painting. If I'm not thinking about my palette, where's my colors? If I'm laying down colors, as I always do, you're laying down those color relationships onto your painting that feel alive rather than simply matching what's in the photo. So in this piece, I'm applying that across the clouds and the landscape. Warm notes where the light hits, cooler notes where the form turns away. It's a simple idea, but it's what gives the painting depth, balance, and that quiet sense of life. Here are a couple of my paintings from years back where I approached color in exactly this way. This first piece, a simple harbor scene, distant hills, sky, water, all built from a mosaic of shifting color values. None of it literal, it's all about how these notes of color interact to feel like distance and atmosphere. The second, a meadow with trees and clouds, followed the exact same principles. Layers of warm and cool tones weave together to create depth and light. Illusion of space coming not from detail, but from subtle variations of color relationships. So if you look at the shadow of this cloud, you'll see all sorts of variations of color values and the way that they're applied based on a certain principles of light and dark. Clouds sometimes don't follow those same rules because they're essentially just water vapors, but for the most part you can see a whole lot of warmth in this shadow side of this cloud with, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred different color values applied with this silicone brush. I think a lot of people working with cold wax medium like it for its versatility and spontaneity and quickness of application and just the way, you know, layers of paint sort of fold over one another and reveal certain underneath layers, and all those things, you know, usually are associated with alla prima type of works where it's one day, maybe 2 days, or multiple paintings in a single session. However, sometimes you can't speed up progress, and the secret really, in my opinion, is the patience. So if you do intend on working with cold wax in this fashion, where you build up layers, which we've done for the most part, I'm zoomed in right now to show you all of the individual color values here, or cues of color, or color notes as I call them. But if you are intent on getting things much more representational, and if you want to step away from strictly having an abstract painting, there is no substitute for patience and evaluating color values and creating proper form. So the secret is obviously just put in the time. I mean, I'm likely going to be working on these clouds rest of today, just sort of evaluating how one color behaves beside the other color, because as you can see, this tool that I'm using And the way that I'm applying these color notes can be time consuming. The world reveals itself slowly. As John Keats once wrote, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever." Even a simple meadow, glimpsed through these drifting clouds, holds layers of color, light, and life for those who take the time to notice. If you're new to my channel, welcome firstly, of course, but you might be wondering, what tool am I using? This is just a silicone squeegee. It's a small one. These come in various sizes, and in fact I have them in all sorts of different sizes. But they have, let me clean it off for you. They have two sides to them. One is shorter and one is longer. This guy here has the exact same setup. It's just, this is about an inch or so. This is half an inch, and they're very versatile in that you can, obviously take paint, apply paint. You can scribe with it if you wanted to on one side. You can obviously remove paint, apply thicker swaths of paint, but they're somewhat versatile from that perspective, but also because what I just did for you here. So what I can do is I can take a color value, apply it here, and then for whatever reason, I may want to jump to the shadow part. I clean off that light, and now you have a crisp, darker color using the same tool. So brush, of course, has its advantages, but you've got to be mindful of how dirty it is and not having cross-contamination of lights and darks. And even within the family of shadows, you certainly, as I was mentioning earlier, you have a whole lot of different color values. Brushes, by their very nature, are difficult and they pick up paint. They're difficult to clean, so I find this indispensable. Not as a sole tool, the only tool, but certainly having it in your toolbox is a big asset. Okay, so I think I'm at an end. This is more an exercise than a full-on studio work. There's some things that I'm certainly happy with. Other things maybe less so. Namely, I didn't pay too much attention to design, which I probably should have. But in reality, this is more of an exercise on pushing boundaries of color and not so much some other things. So some of the things that I do like, however, are how I've left things very, if you want to call it, unfinished. That's the first thing. The design itself, as I said, is maybe not the most optimal. So I've got these horizontal lines dividing obviously the planes of the panorama. They're reading a little too symmetrical for me, but there's certainly a lot of things that I do like about this and that I can take away and maybe share with you. So firstly, and this might be a little bit difficult to implement, but you need to think in terms of paint and not in terms of picture. Okay, so in this case, what we're doing is we're pushing the boundaries of color from a reference photo to this, which is obviously much more chromatic, warm. The intent was to create a landscape that reads, you got a warm center of focus against a relatively cool background. I am rendering a cloud, but I'm more concerned about individual color values within that mass, more so than, did I render a cloud to its perfection. Having said that, this is maybe reading a little bit too much like a volcano eruption than a cloud itself. But I was more going after trying to see, creating this juxtaposition of warmth against cool and how much I can get away with. And ultimately, the second point that I'd wanted you to take away is you need to allow these marks to sort of dictate beyond your reference photo where you head, so where you go. So you start with a reference photo, you put down a design. I've cropped my image to be more of a vertical format, so the eye leads up into the center of focus. but the marks themselves and the tools that I showed you and that I used will dictate kind of the overall design and what you do with that photo. Let's see how this thing looks up close like, and I'll show you all those little small cues of color up close. Even though this video wasn't specifically about cold wax and its versatilities, my goal was to show you how you can still use that medium and get a relatively representational result. As I pan over this painting, you can see how all those little color choices we chose to create clouds, distance, atmosphere work together to set an overall mood. Let me know if you have any questions or if you've tried cold wax yourself. I've done a number of videos on its versatility and techniques, so do check those out. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, and I will see you next week's video. Bye bye.